the ability for our salespeople to just even reach out and connect or communicate with prospects is becoming increasingly difficult. So we've turned to social selling as an empowerment tool for our sellers. And as part of that was, hey, this is what a professional LinkedIn profile looks like. This is what a professional Twitter profile looks like. And here's how you use these tools as you establish your own personal brand, as you gain credibility, as you pivot and network into customer and prospect conversations.
Welcome to the Modern Marketing Engine podcast, hosted by Bernie Borges. This is the podcast for the modern marketer who wants to hear from their peers in the trenches and the occasional analyst or rockstar influencer, sharing strategies and tactics about what's working in modern marketing. Be sure to listen to the end of each episode for Bernie's summary and takeaways so you can plan your next move in your own modern marketing journey.
Hey there, welcome to episode 242 of the Modern Marketing Engine podcast. I'm Bernie Borges, CMO of Vengreso, and your host. Hey, thanks for listening. Hey, this episode is brought to you by Subtitle, a new online tool that makes it easy to automatically add captions to any video in minutes. Don't let your videos get passed over on social media because people can't follow along on mute. Head to subtitle.com, and that's with a Z as in zebra, subtitle.com/Vengreso to get started. Now, my guest on this episode is Chris Sikora, Vice President of Marketing for Strategic Enterprise and Public Sector at CenturyLink. Chris, welcome to the Modern Marketing Engine podcast.
Bernie, how are you? Thanks again for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Been looking forward to our conversation. We're going to talk about something that I really like talking about, and that is the role of marketing and sales in digital transformation as a strategic initiative within a company, specifically within your company at CenturyLink. But first, Chris, let's give my listener a little bit of context, a little bit of background for anyone who may not be familiar with CenturyLink. Why don't we start there? Who is CenturyLink?
If you're not familiar, CenturyLink is a telecommunications carrier and IT services company. And 75% of our business comes from business-to-business customers. About 25% of our business is with consumer customers. So we compete against the likes of AT&T and Verizon and BT and Orange. About a $24 billion annual company, 55,000 employees, operate in about 60 countries. At the heart of our services is our fiber optic network. We're really, really proud of that. It's something that we've constructed or companies we've acquired over the years have constructed all through North America, literally under oceans, all through Europe and Latin America and into Asia Pac. And of course, what that allows us to do is help our customers with sort of the challenges that are present out there in running their IT infrastructure, their telecommunications networks, along those lines.
Okay. I didn't know you were 75% B2B, so that's something new to me. Now, tell us a little bit about the scope of your role as VP of Marketing for Strategic Enterprise and Public Sector.
Yeah, so the company is divvied up into some business units. There's some business unit pointed at our international business and global accounts, business unit pointed at our smaller customers. The business unit I work for is about a $5 billion a year business, about 2,500 people in the business unit, about 1,000 of them are sellers. And we handle what we call strategic enterprise, which are companies with 500 full-time employees and above. And we handle all of our federal customers and our state, local, and education customers.
Is that U.S. only?
We concentrate on North American headquartered companies, okay, but we handle any services that they need, whether they're down the street, across the country, around the world.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about the team that you oversee in your marketing role.
Yeah, so there's about 50 people that are on my team, like I said, supporting those 1,000 sellers. And it's our job to kind of take the broad product portfolio the broad pricing strategies, the broad messaging and branding strategies, and kind of curate them and focus for our specific customer segments.
Okay. Let's talk about kind of the transition that you've been going through as a company. With digital transformation, you've got kind of the way it used to be done and the way it's being done and the way it's going to be done. And so I know in preparation for our podcast, Chris, we talked about classical marketing and the way you've been doing it and how that's been evolving. So do you want to kind of speak to that evolution a little bit?
Yeah, well, maybe what would be helpful is just to kind of give a little bit of my background. I'm basically 35 years in technology, most of it in telecommunications companies. And the vast majority of that was being a seller myself or in sales management or 11 years as a regional vice president for one of CenturyLink's companies that it acquired. And for the last 18 months or so in this marketing role. So as you can imagine, I come with a sales set of lenses on much of what I look at. And what I count on the other 49 people on my team to do, they're all professional marketers, so they keep me honest. Right? So when I think about what we're trying to accomplish, I mean, it really, really starts with the customer and finding answers to tangible and meaningful customer problems is kind of what we're all about. So I mentioned when we're talking about curating the broad product set, it really means sort of assembling those different products and solutions together such that they solve a real world customer need. And what we really want to do is enable our sellers to become really, really good at bringing answers to customers such that they are kind of teachers and guides to the customer as opposed to just a salesperson.
So I would imagine, and I'm probably going to be very basic in this explanation, Chris, but I would imagine that a seller in your world is working with an enterprise and really looking at their overall IT infrastructure and looking to understand their business challenges and then presenting solutions that are IT infrastructure solutions that help them achieve their business goals. Again, probably highly simplified, but maybe you can give some context.
Yeah, no, spot on. I think, you and I would really, really agree that a customer's world, whether it's the CIO or a frontline knowledge worker or a CEO of a company, over the last 20 years, the world has just become so much more intricate, I think is the word I would use. So whether we're talking about globalization of markets where, somebody was just competing in the United States and now they're competing globally, or the fact that companies are acquiring other companies and those companies need to be integrated. Consumer customers or business customers too are just more demanding of their vendors, of what the solution to bring to the table, how you interact with that customer. They want it to be fast and streamlined and digital first and all those types of things. Speed to market, and probably even more important is the speed of your competitor to market. So all of this stuff just adds a lot of intricacies into our customers' world. So where can we identify the opportunities that exist within that intricacy or the pain points and then solve to either. In CenturyLink's case, what we really concentrate on are three categories of services is networking. You can think of a lot of that as wide area networking type applications or metro app networking applications, connected security, and then our agile IT type services.
I would think then that with your background being in sales and sales leadership, and then coming into a role over the last 18 months of being in a marketing leadership role with 49 people to keep you honest, as you say, did you inherit any kind of a marketing environment or marketing infrastructure that was siloed and really needed the good old-fashioned marketing and sales alignment?
Well, I think yes. And I think this is probably a real common thing that marketing groups face vis-a-vis sales teams, is they're kind of like these gears that are out there and often they are turning in isolation. So trying to kind of bring those gears together and really, really mesh them was something that when I moved into this role was one of my biggest goals. And I think probably our biggest opportunity for really making an impact.
let's get into that a little bit because I want to kind of tie it to the digital transformation movement within the company. So how closely tied are they, Chris? Did you focus on marketing and sales alignment as a thing all to itself, or was it within the context of this overarching digital transformation strategy at CenturyLink?
So when we look at a digital transformation, we look at it again from our sort of our customer's perspective and what are they going through and how their world is indeed transforming. Then we look internally and we say, what's our own path here? Where are our opportunities to find opportunity in the intricacy or fix pain points? If we look at things like empowering a salesperson, it's easy for me to say, hey, I really want them to be a teacher and a guide to the customer. But, what am I really doing to enable that salesperson to be empowered to do that? So we look really, really hard at different digital first mindsets. And that's whether we're talking about, our digital advertising strategies or our social selling strategies or the way that we do sales enablement, sales engagement, sales training. We've found all sorts of different ways to sort of transform how we would usually approach those areas until, the opportunities of what we're able to do now.
Okay. We, of course, at Vengreso don't play in digital advertising, but we do in social selling. So we've had the privilege of working with your organization on the social selling side. So maybe you can kind of touch on that a little bit. What kind of an impact are you seeing in the sales organization as it relates to this movement that you're strategically focused on at CenturyLink?
So as it relates to empowering a salesperson, and we look at social selling, you can imagine how often your mobile phone rings with a spam call or how many spam emails you get to your work email despite whatever filters an IT department has set up. So the ability for our salespeople to just even reach out and connect or communicate with prospects is becoming increasingly difficult. So, we've turned to social selling as an empowerment tool for our sellers. And of course, you guys helped us greatly with that. We had the majority of our sales team train them on social selling skills. You all helped us with. As part of that was one of the kind of tickets to get in the ballpark items there is, hey, this is what a professional LinkedIn profile, for example, looks like. This is what a professional Twitter profile looks like. And here's how you use these tools as you establish your own personal brand, as you look to gain credibility, as you look to pivot and network into customer and prospect conversations, prospects that you would otherwise not be able to get a hold of. So I had somebody run some stats for us, actually, sort of post the Vengreso work that you guys did for us. One of the ways that we measure this is just through social engagement. All right. So, how many people are actually utilizing some of our social engagement tools?
Okay.
Let me just rattle down through the stats, see if you like what you hear here. 42% increase in users in the social engagement tools, a 50% increase in reach, an 80% increase in, actually an 83% increase in engagement. And we've got a stat here on how much of this 48% increase in stuff that pivoted back into CenturyLink.com, those types of things. So we think that really gives a picture of a sales force that was sort of probably sporadically using social selling as a tactic to now where there's a good cadre of them that has got energy going, these conversations that are happening, this information being shared, this networking being done to pivot into these new conversations and new customer connections.
We often say that the modern buyer has gotten better at buying faster than sellers have gotten at selling. And we're referring to B2B buyers and B2B sellers. And in fact, we often quote the CSO Insights annual study in 2017, 53% of salespeople made their quota. They just released their 2018 numbers, and unfortunately, the bump wasn't much. 54.3% of B2B salespeople made quota in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about it, Chris, it's for all the reasons that you just cited that your salespeople are doing now, right? They're using the tools that are available to them because they've been trained and they've been given a strong profile. They're reaching more people and they're engaging with more people. And let's face it, you can't build pipeline if you don't have engagement with prospective buyers.
Exactly right.
So that's fantastic. Now, how does all this then bridge to the strategic initiative? Again, I'm coming full circle back to the strategic initiative of digital transformation. I really want to make sure we cover that.
Yeah, so think about all the other tools that empower a salesperson. So, for example, like many companies, we're a user of Salesforce.com. So, sort of that's a classic in the cloud application. The same way that we consult with our customers about how traffic patterns change when you shift from a premise-based data center solution to a cloud-based solution. These are all things that CenturyLink itself went through as we took advantage of these different technologies. We had a campaigning tool. This is a tool the sales rep could use on their own. They could set up a campaign. They had to use some approved content, but you could set the campaign and go. So it emails, and it schedules a call from somebody on our Smile and Dial team looking to set up an appointment on behalf of the salesperson. The different information that we give them, so the kind of the business intelligence and the competitive intelligence, all of those types of things come into play to empower that salesperson.
Is it safe to then surmise that the investment in the training also has impacted their mindset around digital first, so that the more you empower them with tools and technologies, the more they're equipped from a mindset standpoint and from a motivation standpoint and from a understanding the why standpoint, and therefore embracing the tools to use them and be effective with them?
I don't know whether I'd say that they all make that direct line connection, and it's not sometimes a dotted line or a circuitous line. But no, there's no doubt that they understand how their own lives are shifting, and what that means for their customers. I mean, if you just look at the various video conferencing platforms or the collaboration platforms that are out there. I mean, these are tools that we're using all the time, or using with our partners and vendors, and obviously we're using them with our customers too. So yeah, so you see all of that stuff in action, and then look, we take pride in teaching our salespeople, into the guts of how an IT infrastructure works, and where some of the pinch points are, and what our products and services can do to help customers solve whatever problems that they're seeing out there.
So tell me if I'm stretching here, Chris. Is there a bridge then between this shift that you've been experiencing internally to the very shift that you sell in terms of digital transformation to your customers?
Absolutely. People can see this shift going on, and there's definitely that bridge.
One final question before I segue to my summary, and that is a little bit of what you expect to see. You've been in this role for about 18 months now. What do you kind of see over the next year or two in this role, and kind of the progression that you're on?
We continue to kind of go to that touchstone of where is the customer coming from? Where's the customer problem to be solved? Let's start there. And sometimes that takes reminding, right? Sometimes it takes us reminding some of the people that have developed a certain product or certain aspects of a product, about like, hey, where is this playing? What's the big problem that it's solving for the customer, so that we can talk in the customer's language. You can get the customer's head around that. And then we can also design, all right, here's how we're going to identify that problem, and then here's how we're going to bring that answer. I foresee as us continuing to kind of hit that touchstone. And then we'll continue to be aggressive in how we ourselves among this marketing team and among these sellers are taking advantage of the different aspects of digital transformation that become available. When we do digital advertising to a set of customers, we let our sellers know that. So they know when a campaign is going to launch and which of their customers are going to be approached through those digital advertising assets. And then, of course, that way, when we say, hey, somebody engaged with our content, here's what they engaged with, and here's the person that downloaded the white paper, it's not just showing up as a lead in sales.com that the sales rep doesn't understand whether there's a sense of urgency or not and tends not to act and that type of thing. They feel that they're actually engaged in this whole process. So those are just some of the examples of how the whole macro digital transformation is going on, and then, of course, how we utilize it here within CenturyLink and utilize it specifically within this marketing and sales team.
If you're creating video for social media, you know how important it is to have captions on all of your videos. Really, think of how many times you passed over a video on social because your phone was muted or you were in a public place or maybe at work. Unfortunately, adding a caption to videos has been a pain or an expensive task to outsource. That is exactly why we use Subtitle, a new online tool that automatically adds captions to any video in minutes. Subtitle auto-detects the spoken word in your videos and burns in open captions that are timed perfectly. Their easy editing interface even helps you clean up the text and customize the captions so they fit with your branding. Visit subtitle.com, that's Z as in zebra, subtitle.com/Vengreso today to get started. All right, Chris, so we are at a point in the podcast where I do a little summary of what we discussed, and then I'm going to ask you to comment or elaborate or fill in any holes or correct me on anything that I might have said in the summary that just isn't exactly right. And so we began our conversation really talking about the company, CenturyLink. You're the second largest telecom provider, global footprint, 75% of your business is B2B, 55,000 employees, and really heart and soul of your technology infrastructure, if I got it right, is your fiber optic network and what you're able to do with that to deliver solutions for customers. You are VP of Marketing for Strategic Enterprise and Public Sector. You've got about 1,000 salespeople that you support. You've got a 50-person marketing team, and they're keeping you honest because you come at it with a sales lens with your entire 35-year career in sales and then in this role for about the last 18 months. And so everything you do is with a sales lens. Love that. And so you point out, Chris, that everything starts with the customer. You're looking to find answers to tangible customer problems and really assemble the solutions, and then enabling the sellers to bring those answers to the customers. And you point out, what we already know, and that is that business and the world at large has gotten more and more complex. Everything's global. You've got companies acquiring companies. Speed to market's important. Speed to, competitive threats is important. So it's really solving those pain points through a mix of networking applications, connected security, and agile IT. And when you came into the role, you kind of inherited, and I love this metaphor, of gears that were turning in isolation. So essentially, marketing and sales were not so terribly well aligned. And so you started with really looking at things from the customer perspective, and then really looked at how can you enable salespeople so that they can solve customer problems with a digital first mindset. And the two big pillars that we discussed, and perhaps there's more, but we discussed digital advertising, where you're communicating your value proposition through digital advertising to target customers, and then also equipping the salespeople with social selling skills and empowering salespeople to really connect and communicate with their prospects, empowering them with a stronger LinkedIn professional profile, and then teaching them how to use their profile and the tools to be credible within their network. Of course, we're really proud to say that we've been a contributor to that at Vengreso, and you've mentioned that some of the recent results that you've seen is a 42% increase in their use of tools, a 50% increase in their reach, and an 83% increase in their digital engagement. And really, this is what I heard you say, and it really went from random acts of social selling to a more cadence style, because they have the training and the skills and the tools to do it effectively and network more effectively. And then you talked about the fact that, you've got a robust sales stack, so things like Salesforce, and it's an example of how using something in the cloud is exactly what your customers are going through. They're going through this transition from premise-based to cloud-based technologies. So it's a mindset that, you can have empathy with, because you've experienced it yourself at CenturyLink. So it really enables the salespeople to sell with empathy and effectively by having, again, that digital first mindset. And then we talked about, where you're headed, what you think is next. And you said, well, you got to stay focused on the customer problem. That's probably never going to change. And then always looking to find ways to message your solutions to those customer problems, and staying aggressive in both your marketing strategies and your sales enablement strategies, really premised on digital transformation, both internally at CenturyLink and at your customers, and what they're going through in digital transformation, and then doing that through digital advertising and communicating to sellers exactly what digital advertising you're doing, so that when they do see any kind of an impact or leads and that kind of thing, they know where it came from. There's integration back to your marketing team and everything that you all are doing. And then again, with the continued investment in their social selling mindset and skill set, they can continue to be effective in that reach and engagement and building pipeline, as we discussed as well. So, Chris, that's my summary. Is there anything that you would like to add?
Yes, that I really could have used you in my freshman year at college to cheat off of and get the notes from the professor's lecture. That was an impressive feat.
All right,
Bernie, I appreciate it.
Well, I don't know about the freshman in college thing, but I appreciate that. Chris, where would you like to send my listener to connect with you online and just learn more about what you've got going on and follow it?
So please hit my LinkedIn profile. I try to share things that I think are interesting and helpful day in and day out, and would love to connect with people.
All right, well, my listener
there.
knows that we'll link that up. And for my mobile listener, I'll also say that your LinkedIn profile is at the end of the URL, your full name, Christopher Sikora, Sikora. But again, we'll link that up in our show notes page at Vengreso.com. So, Chris, thank you so much for joining me here today on this episode of the Modern Marketing Engine podcast.
Bernie, great conversation. Thanks so much for having me.
If you've ever wondered how we at Vengreso get those cool captions to any video on social media, well, wonder no more. Use Subtitle so your videos stand out by visiting subtitle.com/Vengreso.
This wraps up another inspiring episode of the Modern Marketing Engine podcast. If you want to share this podcast with a friend, let them know that we're available on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Podcasts. And we love 5-star reviews. If you are not subscribed yet, please hit the subscribe button on your favorite podcast player so you don't miss an episode. You can read the show notes for each episode at Vengreso.com. While you're there, sign up to receive the show notes delivered to your inbox through our weekly alerts. And be sure to also check out our Selling with Social podcast hosted by Vengreso CEO Mario Martinez Jr. Again, you'll find our show notes at Vengreso.com. And that's 1 S in Vengreso. Tune in again next week when Bernie Borges brings you another inspiring interview to help you thrive on your modern marketing journey.